On a crisp October morning in Montgomery, Alabama, District Attorney Charles Reddick was gunned down just steps from the courthouse, broad daylight. A busy street, and no witnesses willing to speak. 2 months later, his deputy and the deputy's wife were found executed in their home. No forced entry, no stolen items, just silence, shell casings, and cold precision. What looked like a revenge killing soon unraveled into a far darker web of betrayal, corruption, and calculated vengeance. The killer? A man once respected by the justice system, until it turned on him. This is the true story of the Reddick Murders. Montgomery, Alabama, October 10, 2022 to 8:03 a.m. The morning air was crisp. The kind of southern fall day where the sun hadn't quite warmed the sidewalks yet, and the leaves crackled underfoot. Charles Reddick, 52 years old, stepped out of his maroon Buick and adjusted his sport coat. He looked every bit the Southern DA, gray at the temples. Sharp suit, coffee in hand, he greeted a courthouse clerk with a tired smile. The kind that hinted he hadn't slept well. He hadn't, not in weeks. He was halfway across Hull Street, headed toward the county courthouse, the same walk he took every weekday for 12 years. Then, a sound, a sharp crack, then another, screams. A third shot echoed between the marble columns. Reddick staggered, one hand clutched his stomach. He spun slightly, confusion, pain, shock, then collapsed onto the courthouse steps. Blood spread from under his shirt and seeped onto the concrete like ink in water. Chaos erupted. Law clerks scrambled back inside. A security guard drew his sidearm but couldn't tell where to point it. Somewhere down Hull, a sedan with no plates screeched out of a loading zone and vanished before anyone could make out the driver. County 911, what's your emergency? There's been a shooting. Oh God, it's Mr. Reddick. He's not moving, he's bleeding bad. We're right outside the courthouse. Hull and Monroe. By the time first responders arrived, Charles Reddick was clinging to life. 5 bullets, 3 to the torso, 1 to the thigh, 1 that grazed his shoulder. He had a pulse, but barely. They rushed him to Jackson Hospital. But at 9:17 a.m., the district attorney for Montgomery County was pronounced dead. Word traveled fast. By 10 a.m., Montgomery's police chief, Harold Keegan, stood grim-faced behind a podium, flanked by agents from the FBI and U.S. Marshals. This was not a random act. This was targeted. We believe Mr. Reddick was assassinated. The media seized the word. Assassinated, not murdered, not killed. Assassinated, like he was a politician or a foreign dignitary. And maybe, in a way, he was. Reddick was a hard-charging DA who had made powerful enemies. In his decade on the job, he'd helped put away cartel affiliates, crooked cops, violent gang members, and even a judge. A man like that doesn't walk through life without creating shadows behind him. By noon, Hull Street was cordoned off. Evidence markers dotted the sidewalk like scattered confetti, bullet casings, fragments of shattered ceramic from Reddick's coffee cup, blood spatter, but there were no fingerprints, no surveillance footage showing the killer, no weapon, and no witnesses who had seen a face. One woman said she heard someone shout, "You did this," before the gunfire. Another thought she saw a man in a black hoodie crouched behind a delivery truck, but she couldn't describe his face, or even the color of the vehicle he got into. Chief Investigator Elise Barden surveyed the scene with a veteran's instinct. She'd seen gangland hits, revenge shootings, even an honor killing once. But this had an energy she didn't like. Methodical, calm, professional. Back at the office, Barden reviewed Reddick's recent caseload. At least 43 active felony prosecutions, 19 drug indictments, 6 organized crime cases, 2 grand jury testimonies scheduled that week. But one name stood out, Cyrus Tate. 3 months earlier, Reddick had helped indict Tate, a former Montgomery PD officer turned private contractor, accused of falsifying evidence, witness intimidation, and ties to a robbery crew. It was a high-profile fall from grace, and it had divided the city. Tate still had loyal friends in the police. The ones who didn't believe the charges said Reddick had used him as a scapegoat. Now Reddick was dead, and Cyrus Tate had no alibi for the morning of October 10th. But when detectives brought him in for questioning, he was already lawyered up. You think I'm stupid enough to shoot a DA in broad daylight? His tone was bitter, arrogant, but calm. You people already railroaded me. Why would I do anything to help your case now? The truth was, Barton didn't think he did it. Not personally, but someone who had access to his resentment, his anger, might have pulled the trigger for him. But she had no proof. And worse, she had no leads. The FBI expanded the investigation. A task force was formed. Federal marshals were called in to offer protection to Reddick's staff. Rumors circulated. Some said it was cartel retaliation. Others whispered about a disgraced former judge. The DA's office issued a statement of unity. But behind closed doors, fear gripped the courthouse. Assistant DA David Wyatt sat alone in his office that night. Curtains drawn, Glock on his desk. His wife had begged him not to go into work. But he refused to hide. He looked at the stack of files Reddick left behind and muttered. We finish what he started. He had no idea. He was next. Montgomery, Alabama, December 23, 2022 to 6:12 p.m. 2 days before Christmas. Most people were buying last-minute gifts. Stuck in traffic, or at home wrapping presents. The city felt quieter than usual. It had been over 2 months since DA Charles Reddick was assassinated. And still no arrests. The headlines had faded. The courthouse steps had been scrubbed. But inside the Montgomery County DA's office, tension never left. Assistant District Attorney David Wyatt had inherited most of Reddick's pending caseload. He didn't sleep much anymore. Neither did his wife, Angela. The couple had recently upgraded the home security system at their ranch-style home in Eastwood Estates, cameras on every corner. Reinforced locks, motion lights, even a new pistol in Angela's nightstand. But none of it would save them. Around 6:12 p.m., Angela Wyatt's sister, worried after several unanswered texts, stopped by their house. The porch light was off. Strange. The front door was slightly ajar. Stranger. She stepped inside and screamed. Police arrived within minutes. Officers found Angela sprawled in the hallway, one shot to the chest, one to the temple. David was in the living room, face down near the coffee table, his pistol inches from his outstretched hand. 4 bullets in total, 3 to the back, 1 clean through the neck. There were no signs of forced entry, no valuables missing, no struggle, just death, just precision. Montgomery Police Dispatch, bodycam audio. We're going to need the coroner. Both victims. Secure the scene. Get CSU down here ASAP. Multiple casings. High caliber. Maybe .223 or 5.56. That's rifle ammunition. This wasn't a home invasion. This wasn't random. This was an execution, just like Reddick. The killer had entered, killed, and vanished, all in under 3 minutes. There were no usable fingerprints. The security camera's hard drive had been wiped, physically removed from the DVR box. A neighbor's doorbell camera showed a white SUV idling 2 houses down just before 6 p.m. But the plates were covered with duct tape. The killer had thought of everything. Just like last time. The local news broke the story that night. Second prosecutor in Reddick case murdered. Fears of serial killer mount. The community was shaken. This time it wasn't just a courtroom hit. This was personal, intimate, inside a home. During the holidays, Governor Kent Harlow issued a public statement by the next morning. We will not let our prosecutors be hunted. We are allocating every available state resource to track down whoever is responsible for these horrific crimes. But privately, panic spread. Judges canceled in-person hearings. 1 ADA resigned. 2 more requested immediate transfers to other counties. The state brought in armed marshals to protect key officials. A special operations team from the Alabama Bureau of Investigation was activated. Chief Investigator Elise Barton now had a triple homicide and no suspects. And she was running out of time. Blank. Blank. December 26, Montgomery County Justice Center, Temporary Operations Command. Barton stood before a board covered in photos, strings, and pins. Reddick, Wyatt, Angela, dates, vehicles, maps, motives. She circled one name with a red marker, Graham Kellogg. A month earlier, Reddick and Wyatt had been prepping a wire fraud and embezzlement case against Kellogg. a high-profile city contractor and former donor to the mayor's campaign. The case was supposed to be quiet. Sealed indictment, no press. But now both prosecutors were dead. Barton tracked Kellogg's movements. Surveillance footage showed him attending a gala fundraiser the night of the Wyatt murders. Alibi checked out. Dead end. She turned to the only other constant between both victims. An old name. Malcolm Reeves. A former corrections officer turned underground arms dealer. Reddick had helped convict Reeves' younger brother 2 years earlier, weapons trafficking. 15-year sentence. Wyatt handled the appeal and shut it down cold. Now Reeves was out on bond for federal weapons charges. He had motive, rage, access, and he had disappeared. December 28, Selma, Alabama, 72 miles west of Montgomery. Federal agents tracked Malcolm Reeves' vehicle to a storage facility just outside Selma. Inside the unit, an Arkansas 15, tactical gear, 2 burner phones, and a hand-drawn sketch of Reddick's house. Too perfect. But Reeves was still missing. And there was no conclusive evidence tying him to the murders. Just motive, tools, opportunity. Barton stared at the sketch. Circled a note in the margin. October 10 to 8 a.m. Predictable pattern. It chilled her. This wasn't just revenge. This was a campaign. December 30 to 9:41 p.m. Montgomery Police Tipline email server. An email came in. Subject line. Do I have your attention now? No name. No IP address traceable. But the message was short, cold, and terrifying. 2 down. 2 more to go. You chose your side. Tick-tock. Attached was a photo. A blurry image. A surveillance still. From the hallway of the DA's office. It showed Elise Barton walking alone. Briefcase in hand. The message was clear. She was next. Montgomery, Alabama, January 2, 2023 to 5:45 a.m. Detective Elise Barton hadn't slept all night. The anonymous threat sat like an iron weight in her inbox. 2 down. 2 more to go. It looped in her mind with every slow blink. She checked the blinds. Again. Her service Glock sat beside her cereal bowl. Black coffee. Cold eggs. She wasn't scared. Not really. But she was pissed. She'd worked murder cases for 18 years. She'd seen drug wars, domestic executions, cartel-style dump sites. But no killer had ever made it personal, never emailed her a threat, never snapped a photo from inside her building. It meant only one thing. The killer wasn't just watching. He was inside. She went to the DA's office before sunrise. Walking the entire hallway from the photo. No signs of forced entry. No reports of tripped alarms. She checked surveillance logs. Nothing out of the ordinary, until December 23, around 5:16 a.m. A janitor badge had been used to access the rear elevator. No cameras in the stairwell. No name associated with the swipe. Badge ID 4277. The badge had been reported missing by the cleaning service manager 2 days earlier. Intentional, calculated, timed. The killer wasn't just a hitman. He was a ghost with a keycard. January 3 Joint Task Force Meeting, FBI Field Office. Montgomery. Agent Travis King of the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit laid out his theory. We're looking at a mission-oriented killer. Not psychotic, not impulsive. This is methodical, precise, likely military or law enforcement trained. Every move is staged, message-driven. He's using fear as a weapon. The email wasn't just a warning. It was dominance. Barton added, and it means he has access. Building layouts, security blind spots, badge system. He's either an insider, or had help from one. The task force combed through everyone with technical clearance in the DA's building. Contractors. Janitorial staff. Former employees. One name popped up with red flags. Russell Kane. Ex-Montgomery deputy sheriff. Fired in 2018 for evidence tampering. Reddick had made the recommendation. Kane had been off-grid for months. His known address was empty. His parole officer hadn't seen him in weeks. Then a break. Kane's credit card was used at a gas station in Clanton. An hour north. Barton and 2 agents were on the road in under 10 minutes. Clanton, Alabama, 9:42 a.m. The gas station clerk remembered him. Nervous guy, long coat, paid cash for everything except a single bottle of aspirin. That one charge, the mistake. It was Kane. CCTV footage showed Kane entering the store, talking on a phone. The audio was poor, but one fragment stood out. He said, "I told you, I did my part. Don't drag me further." That meant he wasn't working alone. And he was scared. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 4th, a message left behind. Back in Montgomery, crime scene investigators returned to the Wyatt home for another pass. A new tech, combing beneath the stairwell, found something missed. A small USB drive taped under the last step. Inside were 4 files. 1. A surveillance photo of Charles Reddick's driveway, time stamped 3 days before his murder. 2. A scanned blueprint of the DA's office 2nd floor. 3. A grainy video of someone assembling a semi-automatic rifle in a dimly lit garage. 4. A folder titled, "Wolves Wear Badges." It contained over 100 pages of notes, manifestos, rants, dossiers, all on prosecutors, judges, and officers across the state. Case numbers, trial outcomes, home addresses. It was methodical, obsessive. One passage chilled everyone. They think the badge makes them gods. But gods fall, one by one, so they remember what justice should feel like. Whoever this was believed they were delivering real justice. And they weren't finished. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 5 to 7:13 a.m. Lake Martin, Alabama. A local fisherman reported a burned-out sedan submerged off a private boat ramp. When authorities pulled it from the water, the car's plates were gone, but the VIN matched a white SUV registered to Russell Kane. Inside were 2 shell casings, soaked floor mats, and a trash bag full of shredded documents. No body, but in the glove box, a phone, and on that phone, a note. "You want me, I want him, we're not the same, but maybe we want the same thing. R." The signature didn't match Kane's handwriting, but the implication was clear. Kane had been silenced. There was someone else, someone bigger, smarter, leading the entire operation, someone with a motive that hadn't yet been revealed. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 6th, breaking point. Detective Barton couldn't sleep again. She was watching the USB files frame by frame when something hit her. One of the judges in the "Wolves Wear Badges" folder, Judge Ernest Holloway, had ruled on the seizure motion that ended the investigation into Martin Riker. A name she hadn't heard in a long time. Riker was a former ATF agent, fired and convicted in 2012 for planting evidence in a weapons case involving black market militias. Reddick had prosecuted him. Wyatt had testified at his hearing. Holloway had tossed Riker's civil suit in 2020. And Riker had disappeared shortly after. No address, no digital footprint, no employment history. But now, he was back, and the DA's office was being dismantled, one corpse at a time. Montgomery, Alabama, January 7, 2023 to 11:03 a.m. Detective Elise Barton stood in the dim records vault beneath the county courthouse, thumbing through a stack of yellowed folders. Most people didn't even know this room existed, a former bomb shelter turned document archive. The air smelled like mildew and ink. She had one name circled on her notepad, Martin Riker. She finally found it. Case file 20120419, United States vs. Martin D. Riker. The folder was thin, too thin for a federal prosecution. Half the documents were missing. But what remained was enough to confirm her worst suspicion. Riker had been a top-tier ATF agent. Clean record, decorations, until 2011, when a routine arms raid in Mobile went sideways. A suspect was killed. The only witness, a teenager, claimed Riker planted the AR-15 found at the scene. Internal Affairs launched an investigation. Emails surfaced. Riker had been in contact with known militia groups and had filed false chain of custody forms. Reddick, then with the U.S. Attorney's Office, had led the federal prosecution. Wyatt had helped prep the grand jury. And the judge who tossed Riker's later civil appeal, Ernest Holloway. Now 2 of the men involved were dead. Holloway was still on the bench and, according to a recent marshal's memo, had just declined federal security protection. He didn't know. He had no idea how close danger had crept. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 8 to 9:52 a.m. Holloway residence. Pike Road. Al. Barton pounded on Judge Holloway's front door. Nothing. She called out. Nothing. She walked the perimeter. Backyard lights shattered. Dog bowl overturned. She drew her weapon and called in backup. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Then the smell hit her. Blood, copper, sharp and unmistakable. She found Judge Holloway in the garage, slumped against his riding mower. Throat slit. His robe still hung in the hallway. A half-drunk cup of coffee sat by the sink. The killer had been there while Holloway was getting ready. Left him to bleed out where no one would find him for hours. On the garage wall, smeared in red, 4 chilling words. Justice has no shield. This was now a full-blown crusade. 3 prosecutors, 1 judge, all dead. And the killer? Still steps ahead. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 9th emergency press conference, Alabama State Capitol. Governor Harlow, flanked by Attorney General Tracy Delaney and U.S. Attorney Miles Hart, declared a state of emergency in Montgomery County. This is not just an attack on individuals. This is an attack on the rule of law itself. $150 in reward money. 24-hour federal protection for every sitting judge in the state. Every open case involving Martin Riker or his known associates was to be re-examined. And Elise Barton was officially appointed lead investigator. But that didn't make her feel any safer. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 10 to 3:17 p.m. FBI Forensics Lab. Atlanta. The USB drive found at the Wyatt residence had been fully decrypted. One file stood out. It was a zip folder titled, Coyote Doctrine. Inside, tactical training materials, homemade bomb blueprints, watchlist PDFs, satellite maps of court buildings across 3 states. But the creepiest item? A 27-page manifesto, written in Riker's voice, called, The Wolves Have the Watch. Barton read aloud. They don't know what it's like to be betrayed by the system you swore to protect. But they will, one by one. They will feel it, not in darkness, not in hiding. I'll take them in daylight. In front of their flags, their seals, their fake ideals. Page after page of militarized rhetoric. It was unhinged, but disturbingly articulate. This wasn't just vengeance. It was ideology. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 11th Montgomery, Alabama 4:02 a.m. Barton's phone rang. The call came from a blocked number. A man's voice. Cool. Unhurried. You're the smart one, Detective Barton. You know what this is really about. She sat up straight. You're angry. That's fair. But I don't want you. I want them. And you can either be a name I cross out, or a name I skip. She whispered. Riker? Silence. Then, names make people real, but ghosts? They never die. The line went dead. She called the task force. Ordered a trace. But there was nothing. He'd used a digital mask. Again. But he had made one mistake. He had spoken to her. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 12 to 8 a.m. Riker's past comes to light. Back at the task force HQ, Barton pulled every file she could find on Riker's time with the ATF. Training history, associates, former partners, and that's when she saw it. Riker had spent time embedded in Mexico City in 2009, under a joint ATF-CIA task force. Unofficial, off the books, he worked narco-infiltration with U.S. diplomats and foreign assets. One of the men in that unit? Russell Kane. They weren't just associates. They were friends, former operatives, co-trained. That changed everything. Riker wasn't just a rogue agent. He was a tactician. And Kane had been his inside man. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 13 to 11:55 p.m. Hidden cabin. Elmore County. Local deputies responded to a 911 hang-up traced to a remote hunting cabin deep in the woods. Inside, they found maps, burner phones, encrypted flash drives, and a body. Russell Kane. Single gunshot to the head. Execution style. A note was pinned to his chest. Loose ends fray. You know that, Russell. Barton arrived at the scene. stared down at the body. She didn't feel closure. She felt confirmation. Riker wasn't running anymore. He was cleaning house and preparing for his final act. January 15, 2023, Montgomery, Alabama, 12:01 p.m. The city braced itself. Funeral services for Judge Ernest Holloway were scheduled for that afternoon at St. John's Episcopal, just 3 blocks from the courthouse. It was a high-security event. Federal agents, local SWAT, undercover marshals, all stationed in and around the perimeter. Over 100 attendees were expected. Prosecutors, judges, political leaders. It was the perfect place to send a message. Detective Elise Barton knew it. She was on site by 8 a.m., inspecting every corner of the building with a tactical team. Sniper coverage on the roof. Canine units sweeping for explosives. Roadblocks and ID checkpoints at every entrance. And still, she didn't feel safe. Blank. Underscore. Blank. 1:17 p.m. live feed begins. Local TV stations broadcast the funeral service. A somber montage played, courtroom footage of Holloway. Testimonials from clerks and community leaders. As the choir began singing, Amazing Grace, Barton's radio cracked with static. Dispatch. Possible interference on drone channel 3, losing video feed of South Alley. SWAT commander. Copy that. Adjusting frequency. Then, a scream outside. A man in a gray hoodie had walked straight up to a uniformed officer near the north gate and stabbed him in the neck. Panic exploded. Gunshots cracked through the air. Civilians hit the ground. Officers charged. But by the time they reached the attacker, he was already dead. Gun in hand. Bullet through his temple. Self-inflicted. His ID. Dale Forney. Age 42. Former Army. Dishonorably discharged. 2 months prior, he'd been evicted. The only link? He'd once worked private security for a company that had hired Martin Riker as a consultant back in 2016. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 15 to 7:04 p.m. Task Force Emergency Debrief. It was a diversion, Barton said, eyes bloodshot. This wasn't the real attack. And she was right. While law enforcement swarmed the church, a cyber attack crippled the DA's office network. Files were stolen. Security camera feeds wiped. Internal databases scrubbed clean. The killer wasn't targeting people now. He was targeting the system. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 16, FBI Cybercrimes Unit. Birmingham, Al. Forensics traced the digital attack to a remote laptop connected through 6 relays. But there was one oversight. The final signal pinged from a cellular hotspot registered to Catherine West, a former ATF linguistics analyst who'd vanished in 2018. She had been Riker's girlfriend, presumed dead, now, possibly alive, and helping him. Barton stared at the screen. This isn't a solo act. He's building something bigger. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 17 to 11:33 a.m. A letter arrives. It came in a plain manila envelope, hand-delivered to the Montgomery Advertiser newspaper. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed, no fingerprints. You fed off my name. You fed off my downfall. You turned justice into theater. So I've taken your stage. Attached was a photograph. A group of first graders on a school field trip to the courthouse. Smiling, unaware. The implication was undeniable. The next act would be public. And worse, symbolic. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 17 to 9:45 p.m. FBI strategy briefing. Riker wants to shatter trust. Agent Travis King said, he's not just punishing the system. He's terrorizing the public to make them distrust it. A nationwide BOLO was issued for Riker and Catherine West. Their photos were placed at every airport, highway, train station in the South. Anonymous tip lines were overwhelmed. But there were no sightings. No credible leads. Only dread. And one message repeated in every transmission. Every note. You made me. Now I'll unmake you. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 18 to 6:02 a.m. Barton's apartment. She awoke to another email. Tick-tock. Attached was video, grainy, but recognizable. The entrance to Montgomery City Hall. The footage had been filmed less than 12 hours ago. Riker was watching the city's power structure and planning his next strike. Only one question remained. Where? January 18, 2023 to 10:22 a.m. Montgomery City Hall. Security swept the building top to bottom. Dogs, drones, bomb squad, every elevator shaft, every storage closet, nothing. But Barton knew the video wasn't about bombs or bullets, not this time. It was a psychological strike. A reminder. Riker was ahead, watching, choosing when and where to pull the trigger. Still, City Hall was shut down. Every official relocated, extra guards posted, and the public? They were afraid. Exactly how Riker wanted it. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 18 to 5:44 p.m. FBI interrogation room. Birmingham. One break. A civilian tip led authorities to a storage unit in Phoenix City, Alabama, registered to a fake name. But surveillance showed a familiar figure. Catherine West, alive, gaunt, and visibly shaken. She was taken into custody without incident. But what she said shocked everyone. I didn't know how far he'd take it. Not like this. We plan to expose them, not kill them. He told me he'd go out with fire. She handed them a burner phone, the one she used to contact him last. He said, the verdict comes Friday. Friday was January 20th. 2 days. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 19 to 7:03 a.m. Command briefing room. FBI profiler Travis King broke down what they now believed. Riker sees himself as judge and executioner. But Friday he becomes God. His words, his timing, everything points to a public demonstration. A finale. He's going after the courthouse. He doesn't want escape. He wants impact. Barton added, then we give him the stage and make sure the curtain falls on him. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 20 to 6:15 a.m. Montgomery County Courthouse. Hundreds of law enforcement personnel mobilized. The courthouse was cleared. A fake docket was posted, listing a major case at 9 a.m. Agents disguised as attorneys. Judges, even janitors, every window wired, every vent watched. They called it Operation Gavel Drop. Barton, dressed as a court clerk, took her seat in the gallery of the second-floor courtroom. 8:52 a.m. A black SUV pulled up 2 blocks away. A man in a long coat stepped out. Gray baseball cap, aviator sunglasses. Riker. He walked casually toward the courthouse. Backpack slung over one shoulder. 2 blocks. 1. Then, he turned, looked directly at a traffic camera, and smiled. 8:58 a.m. He entered through the main door. The metal detector beeped, but the guard was in on the plan. Riker raised his hands like a show of surrender. And then, dropped the bag. Inside, not a bomb. A laptop. Open. Running a program. It wasn't an attack. It was a broadcast. A live stream. Riker looked straight into the lens and spoke. This isn't about vengeance. This is about truth. The people you've trusted to keep you safe are the most corrupt. The ones who wear robes and badges. They failed us. They failed me. So today, I speak for every forgotten victim of the system. Suddenly, on courtroom monitors, a new video began playing, surveillance footage from inside judges' chambers. Secret recordings of closed-door conversations. Old case files with digital annotations exposing suppressed evidence. Corrupted jury selections. Backroom deals. It was damning. But, it was also real. Riker hadn't come to shoot. He came to expose. Blank. Underscore. Blank. 9:04 a.m. Courthouse control room. Tech agents scrambled to stop the stream, but it was being rebroadcast from multiple mirrors. Viewers skyrocketed. 60.000. Then 100.000. Then 500,000. Barton stormed in, furious. Shut it down, whatever it takes. But the real damage had already begun. Riker had played his final card. Not a bullet, but a file dump. Hundreds of sealed documents were now in the wild. Judges, attorneys, law enforcement agents, all named. Some clearly guilty, some possibly framed. The justice system's walls cracked in real time. And Riker? He calmly walked back outside, where a sniper waited, target in the open, holding, no weapon visible, awaiting green light. Barton raced to the rooftop. Hold fire. I want him alive. But as she reached the edge, it was too late. A single gunshot. Riker dropped. But not from the sniper. He'd pulled the trigger himself. A pistol from his waistband. Clean shot. No pain. No fear. He died with the same look he entered with, calm and satisfied. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 20 to 4:17 p.m. FBI briefing. Riker's hard drives revealed thousands of files. Most tied to his decade-old ATF investigations. Others to whistleblower data he'd amassed during his exile. Much of it proved real corruption. But the murders? The violence? They drowned out the truth. He wanted justice. But delivered carnage. Blank. Underscore. Blank. January 22. Barton's voiceover memo. Martin Riker believed he was the reckoning. But in the end, he became the very thing he hated: judge, jury, and executioner. He exposed real flaws in the system. And then burned any chance of fixing them. Now we live in his ashes, picking up what's left. Sorting truth from tragedy. Trying to find meaning in his madness. He wanted a verdict. And he got one. But not from a court. January 25, 2023 Montgomery County Courthouse. The flags flew at half-mast. A cold wind swept through the marble columns. The steps where Charles Reddick had fallen were lined with candles. Flowers. Handwritten notes. His photo, framed beside that of David and Angela Wyatt, and Judge Ernest Holloway, stood silently on an easel in the rotunda. The city was quiet, not out of peace, but exhaustion. The funerals were over, but the reckoning had just begun. Blank. Underscore. Blank. February 1. Internal investigations begin. The Alabama Office of the Inspector General launched a multi-tiered review of every case exposed during Riker's final act. At least 6 judges were placed on administrative leave. 3 attorneys were suspended pending investigation. 2 police officers resigned within a week. Some of the files were confirmed doctored. Others, real. Sorting truth from fabrication was slow, painful, and messy. But for the first time in decades, the walls of justice weren't just echoing, they were being audited. And the man responsible? Dead. By his own hand. Blank. Underscore. Blank. February 4. Elise Barton's final briefing. Barton stood before the press. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were heavy. We've closed the case. The threat is over. Martin Riker acted alone, with assistance from a limited group of past associates. Now either deceased, detained, or cleared. We will never justify what he did, but we will face what he revealed. Reporters shouted over each other. Should he be considered a terrorist? A vigilante? A whistleblower? Barton paused. He was a man who believed justice had failed him. And then, he failed it back. Blank. Underscore. Blank. March 10. Catherine West trial. Montgomery Federal Court. She pled guilty to aiding and abetting. Tearfully, her statement was quiet. I thought we were doing something righteous. And then I looked around and saw blood. She was sentenced to 28 years, with the possibility of parole after 18. In a sealed memo, prosecutors noted her cooperation saved lives, and possibly helped prevent a far greater tragedy. But the courtroom that day didn't cheer. No one won. Blank. Underscore. Blank. March 15. Interview with Governor Kent Harlow, CBS National. Do you believe Martin Riker got what he wanted? I believe he wanted chaos. And we gave it to him. Do you believe what he uncovered has merit? I believe no truth should be ignored. But no justice should come at the cost of murder. Blank. Underscore. Blank. March 28. Barton's last day in homicide. She boxed up her things. The office walls were bare. She left behind her badge, a pair of worn leather gloves, and a photograph of Reddick shaking hands with her after her first big conviction. She smiled softly. This job takes everything, she said to her replacement. Don't let it take your soul. Then she walked out. Blank. Underscore. Blank. April 2. Documentary airs on CNN. The Reddick Murders. Truth. Blood. And the system that broke. It detailed every step, from the shooting on Hull Street to the livestream heard across the country. Public opinion fractured. Some saw Riker as a monster. Others, a messenger with blood on his hands. But one truth was clear. He changed the conversation. Blank. Underscore. Blank. April 20th memorial installed at the courthouse. A single slab of stone. No names. Just an inscription. To those who pursued justice. And to those who died for it. Let us do better. Riker thought justice was a sword. That it had to cut to be real. But the truth is, justice is a process. It's slow. It's flawed. But it's ours. You don't fix it by burning it down. You fix it by showing up. By listening. By holding the line. Even when no one's watching. Riker left a trail of bodies. But also, a mirror. And now, we're all standing in front of it.